The freshman who had a one-night stand with her lecturer. The wild night. You know that little voice in your head that tells you not to do something stupid? Mine went on vacation the day I decided to attend my first college party. Blame my roommate, Sophie, who said, "You can't spend your whole freshman year binge-watching crime shows, Tara. You're going to this party and you're going to have fun." Fun. Right. Because what's more fun than being crammed into a bar full of sweaty upperclassmen and questionable music choices? I was just nursing my soda in a corner, fully prepared to ghost the place, when he walked in. Tall, dark, and way too handsome to be here. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a bar. The kind of guy who drinks whiskey neat and knows how to tie a Windsor knot without YouTube tutorials. Naturally, I was intrigued. Or maybe it was the 2 margaritas Sophie shoved into my hands earlier. Jury's still out. We started talking. Well, he started talking, and I mostly nodded like an idiot. He was smart, funny, and had this low, gravelly voice that made every word sound like a secret. I told him my name, big mistake. My major, philosophy, because why not? And my latest theory about how college parties were actually government experiments to lower IQs. Maybe you're just at the wrong party, he said, smirking like he had all the answers. One thing led to another, because isn't that how these stories always go? Before I knew it, we were in a cab heading to his place. My brain was screaming, "Bad idea," the entire time, but my body was too busy wondering how his shirt could fit so perfectly. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and a headache that felt like a small marching band had taken up residence in my skull. For a moment, I thought, wow, this Airbnb looks nice. Then reality hit. I turned my head, and there he was, sleeping like some Greek god who just happened to land in a modest one-bedroom apartment. His hair was a mess, his jawline was sharper than my mother's criticisms, and I was in trouble. "What have you done, Tara?" I whispered to myself, because self-judgment is my coping mechanism. I slid out of bed like a ninja in yoga pants, grabbed my clothes, and fled. No note. No goodbye, just pure, unadulterated shame and the faint hope that I'd never see him again. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. The big revelation. The thing about escaping from a mistake is that life always finds a way to laugh in your face. I was still riding the high of my successful ninja-like exit when I strutted into my first Philosophy 101 lecture the next morning, pretending to have my life together. The classroom was already buzzing with energy. Students flipping through overpriced textbooks they wouldn't read, others chatting about whatever Netflix drama was trending. I found a seat near the back because, anonymity is my thing. The door opened and that's when it happened. He walked in. Mr. Too Handsome for this place. Only now he wasn't the mysterious guy buying me margaritas. No, now he was Dr. Adrian Blake, my lecturer. I'm pretty sure my soul left my body. There he was in all his glory, well-fitted suit, sharp glasses, and a stack of papers under his arm, like he was starring in an Ivy League ad campaign. I immediately broke into a sweat. Not the cute, I just ran a 5K kind of sweat. No, this was full-on panic sweat, the kind that makes your brain scream, "Jump out the window! Save yourself!" Dr. Blake scanned the room, his sharp eyes pausing for half a second when they landed on me. Half a second. That's all it took for me to realize he recognized me. "Welcome to Philosophy 101. He began, his voice calm, professional, like he wasn't the reason I had woken up in a stranger's bed just 8 hours ago. "I'm Dr. Blake. I'll be your instructor this semester." I considered faking a coughing fit and running for the door, but then I remembered my GPA couldn't afford a dropped class. So I stayed. And by stayed, I mean I shrank into my chair, hoping the floor would open up and swallow me whole. "Let's start with roll call," he said, flipping through the class roster. The moment he called my name, I knew the universe had it out for me. "Tara Sullivan?" "Here," I squeaked, my voice about 3 octaves higher than usual. Dr. Blake didn't react. No smirk, no raised eyebrow, just a subtle, almost imperceptible pause before moving on to the next name. Professional. Distant. Like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I was internally screaming, what does that pause mean? Is he judging me? Is he plotting my academic demise? The lecture dragged on for what felt like an eternity. Every time he made eye contact with the class, I was convinced he was looking straight at me. By the time it ended, I was a puddle of nerves. Smooth, Sophie said when I met her for lunch afterward. What's smooth? I asked, pretending to eat my sandwich even though I had no appetite. You know, getting all dressed up for your first lecture. She gestured at my outfit, jeans and a hoodie. Clearly, she had no idea. Oh, yeah, totally planned it, I replied, trying not to sound like I was on the verge of a breakdown. Sophie squinted at me. You okay? You're acting weird. Weird? Weird was realizing I'd had a one-night stand with the man who now controlled my grades. Weird was sitting through a lecture on existentialism while wondering if your lecturer was silently judging your poor life choices. Weird was my new normal. As I trudged back to my dorm, I tried to convince myself it wasn't that bad. Dr. Blake was clearly a professional. He wouldn't say anything. I could just keep my head down, ace the class, and move on with my life. Easy, right? Wrong. Awkward encounters. The first week of classes was a masterclass in avoiding eye contact. I sat in the farthest corner of the lecture hall, kept my hand glued to my notebook like I was furiously taking notes, and left the room faster than a sneeze in a quiet library. So far, so good, until it wasn't. The first awkward encounter happened in the coffee shop. I was in line, running on 3 hours of sleep and a desperate need for caffeine, when I heard that voice. You know, the one you never forget, even if you're trying really hard to erase the memory of it. Medium black coffee, no sugar, he said, cool and precise. Dr. Blake. Of course. Of course he'd show up here, because clearly the universe was filming a sitcom, and I was the star of most embarrassing plotline. I did the only logical thing, I ducked. Like fully crouched behind the display of overpriced muffins, pretending to tie my shoe even though I was wearing sneakers with no laces. Tara? His voice was right above me. I froze. Slowly, I looked up, and there he was, holding his coffee and looking down at me with a mix of confusion and amusement. Oh, hi, Dr. Blake, I said, springing to my feet and immediately regretting my choice of words. Too enthusiastic, too cheerful, totally suspicious. Didn't expect to see you here, he said casually, like he hadn't just caught me in the middle of a failed escape plan. Yeah, well, caffeine addiction is a real thing, I blurted, because apparently I had no control over my mouth. I mean, not that I'm, addicted or anything. Coffee's great. Okay, bye. I grabbed a muffin I didn't even want, slapped a $5 bill on the counter, and bolted. Smooth, Tara. Real smooth. The second awkward encounter was worse. Much worse. It happened in the library, where I had gone to study, read, hide. I was deep into my philosophy textbook, trying to wrap my head around Socrates' ideas on morality, when I heard the faint rustle of someone pulling out a chair. Mind if I sit here? I looked up. It was him. Why? Oh, sure, I stammered, gesturing to the seat across from me, because saying no would have been too normal, and I was incapable of normalcy. Dr. Blake set his laptop down, his expression unreadable. Meanwhile, my brain was running a full marathon of panic. Was this a coincidence? Was he here to talk about it? Was I about to get expelled for extracurricular activities? He opened a book and started reading, his attention seemingly elsewhere. I tried to focus on my notes, but the air felt charged with unspoken words. My hand was sweating so much it smudged the ink on my notebook. Need help with that? He asked, nodding at my textbook. No, I'm fine, I said too quickly, snapping the book shut. Totally got it. Socrates and, his thing, morality and stuff. He chuckled softly. You might want to reread that chapter. And just like that, he went back to his book, leaving me to stew in my awkwardness. The worst part of all these encounters wasn't Dr. Blake. It was Sophie. She was too observant for her own good. You're acting weird, she said for the third time that week, as we sat in our dorm, me pretending to study and her scrolling through TikTok. Are you hiding something? Did you murder someone? No, I said, a little too defensively. She narrowed her eyes. Is it a boy? I laughed. No, absolutely not. It's a boy. It's not a boy. Sophie tilted her head, her eyes narrowing further. Wait, it's not one of those older grad students, is it? You're into that whole mature guy vibe, aren't you? I nearly choked on my water. No. Oh my God, Sophie, stop. Uh-huh, she said, smirking. I'll find out eventually. No, she wouldn't, because there was nothing to find out. Except, everything. By the end of the week, I had one goal. Survive this semester without accidentally confessing my crime of passion. Easy, right? Spoiler alert, wrong. The close call. The thing about secrets is they have a way of slipping out when you least expect it. Like, say, when you're exhausted, overcaffeinated, and stupid enough to write a detailed note about the awkward situation with my lecturer and leave it in the library. Yes, that happened. I was in one of those private study rooms, scribbling furiously in my notebook about how I needed to keep my cool around Dr. Blake. It wasn't a diary, okay? It was more like stress therapy. Writing things down made me feel better. Unfortunately, writing things down also left a paper trail. "Don't panic, Tara," I muttered as I packed up my stuff. I was so focused on shoving my textbook into my bag that I didn't notice the notebook, the one with my incriminating thoughts, falling off the desk. And that's how Liam, the human embodiment of gossip culture, found it. The next day, Liam strutted into class with the smug energy of someone holding a winning lottery ticket. I didn't even notice him at first. I was too busy avoiding Dr. Blake's gaze and pretending to take notes on metaphysics. Then Liam leaned over my desk and whispered, "So, Tara, interesting reading material you left behind." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He grinned, pulling out my notebook. "This, the one about your awkward lecturer situation. Care to elaborate?" I lunged for it, but Liam was quicker. "Relax, I didn't show anyone," he said, holding it just out of reach. "Yet." "Liam, I swear if you—" "What's in it for me?" he interrupted, twirling the notebook like a baton. I considered my options. Bribery? Blackmail? Murder? No, too messy. "What do you want?" I hissed. "Let me copy your notes for the midterm," he said with a wink. "That's it?" He nodded. I grabbed the notebook from his hand, clutching it like it was my firstborn child. "Fine, but if you say anything to anyone—" "Relax, Tara. Your secret's safe with me." I thought the crisis was over, but Liam, being the nosy little gremlin he was, couldn't resist pushing his luck. Later that week, he approached Dr. Blake after class with a fake innocent smile plastered on his face. I was still in the room, packing up my things when I overheard him. "So, Dr. Blake," Liam said casually, "how do you handle awkward situations with students?" I froze. "Doctor?" Blake's expression didn't change, but I could tell he wasn't buying whatever Liam was selling. "I'm not sure what you mean," Dr. Blake said calmly. "Oh, nothing specific," Liam replied, his tone dripping with fake innocence. "Just curious." Dr. Blake's eyes flicked toward me for the briefest moment before returning to Liam. "If you have an actual question about the course material, I suggest you ask it. Otherwise, I have work to do." Liam's grin faltered, and he slinked away. As I walked past Dr. Blake on my way out, he spoke quietly, just loud enough for me to hear. "Be more careful, Tara." His tone wasn't angry or accusatory, just calm. Like he wasn't even surprised. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't decide if I wanted to thank Dr. Blake for brushing Liam off or dig a hole and live in it forever. Either way, one thing was clear. I needed to get my life together. Easier said than done, though, because the semester was far from over. The turning point. By the time midterms rolled around, I had perfected the art of surviving awkward situations. Step 1. Avoid unnecessary eye contact with Dr. Blake. Step 2. Pretend like my life wasn't a ticking time bomb. Step 3. Keep Liam and his meddling mouth on a tight leash. But midterms were also a time for introspection. Or maybe it was just the 3 hours of sleep and 2 gallons of coffee talking. Either way, I realized something during one of Dr. Blake's lectures. This wasn't just about avoiding embarrassment anymore. I was learning, for lack of a better phrase, how to own my mistakes. It started with an innocent enough email. "Miss Sullivan, please see me during office hours to discuss your midterm paper." That was it. No urgent, no great job, no nothing. Just please see me. And while it could have meant anything, my overactive imagination filled in the blanks with, "He's going to fail me, expose me, and have me banned from the philosophy department forever." When I showed up at his office, my hands were clammy, and my heart was pounding like I'd just run a marathon. He looked up from his laptop, his face as unreadable as ever, and gestured for me to sit. "I wanted to talk about your paper," he said, sliding a printed copy across the desk. I glanced at it, noticing a B+ written in the corner. Relief washed over me like a wave. "I thought your argument was solid," he continued, "but your conclusions were a bit rushed. Next time, spend more time tying your points together." "That's it?" I asked, my voice betraying my disbelief. He raised an eyebrow. "Did you think it was about something else?" "No." I said too quickly, my cheeks burning. Yeah, thanks for the feedback. For a moment, we sat there in awkward silence. I wasn't sure if I should leave or if there was more to this meeting. Then he leaned back in his chair, studying me with that calm, analytical expression he always wore. Tara, he said, his tone measured, I know this semester has been complicated. My stomach twisted. This was it. He was finally going to say something about that night. But I want to make one thing clear, he continued. What happened outside of this classroom won't affect your performance in this course. As far as I'm concerned, it's in the past. I blinked, unsure how to respond. He was being mature, professional even. Kind? That was unexpected. I appreciate that, I said finally, my voice soft. He nodded. Good, focus on your studies and you'll do just fine. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't doomed to be the freshman who ruined her life with one bad decision. Maybe I could move on. The rest of the semester wasn't exactly smooth sailing, but it was better. Dr. Blake stayed professional, and I stayed out of trouble. Well, mostly. Sophie eventually dropped her detective act, and Liam, thankfully, lost interest in my awkward lecturer situation. By the time finals rolled around, I was more confident, more focused, and maybe even a little wiser. Mistakes are inevitable, but how you handle them? That's what defines you. Finals week hit like a hurricane. The campus was buzzing with late-night study sessions, frantic coffee runs, and students stress-crying in the library. No judgment, I was one of them. My Philosophy 101 exam loomed over me like a dark cloud, but for the first time all semester, I felt okay. Not great, not confident, but okay. When I walked into the exam room, I avoided my usual back corner and sat in the middle of the room. Maybe it was the caffeine talking, but I felt like I was finally ready to face things head on. Dr. Blake handed out the exam papers, his expression as neutral as ever, but I swore there was the faintest hint of a smile when he glanced my way. Or maybe I imagined it. Either way, I wasn't about to let it distract me. 3 hours later, I handed in my paper and walked out of the classroom with a mix of exhaustion and relief. It was over. No more lectures, no more awkward encounters, no more late-night overthinking about that night. I met Sophie at the campus cafe afterward. She was already halfway through a cinnamon roll when I dropped into the seat across from her. So, she said, her mouth full, how'd it go? Fine, I said, shrugging. I think I did okay. She gave me a knowing look. You mean you didn't completely embarrass yourself in front of your super hot professor? I groaned, burying my face in my hands. Sophie, for the last time, he's not. Relax, she said, grinning. I'm just messing with you. Besides, I think he's way too old for you. Like, what is he, 30? I rolled my eyes but didn't reply. If only she knew. The real moment of resolution came a week later when grades were posted. My heart was pounding as I logged into the student portal, bracing myself for the worst. Philosophy 101. I stared at the screen, disbelief washing over me. An A? Not just passing, but an... I almost cried. Almost. There was a single comment next to the grade. Good work this semester. Keep it up. Dr. Blake. I stared at it for a long moment, a strange mix of gratitude and relief bubbling up inside me. It wasn't just about the grade, it was about everything. The semester ended and life moved on. I never saw Dr. Blake outside of class again, and honestly, that was probably for the best. The whole thing became just another story in my chaotic freshman year, a story I'd never tell Sophie, Liam, or anyone else for that matter. But sometimes late at night, when I'm lying in bed and replaying my life's most embarrassing moments, I think about that wild night and everything that followed, and I can't help but laugh. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Mistakes are inevitable. It's how you recover from them that counts.